Hana Kim stared at the screen in front of her. The numbers didn't make sense. 27 massive ships had appeared out of nowhere near Haven Colony. They were bigger than anything she had ever seen, much bigger than human ships. "Commander, Kim, we're getting signals from the colony," said her communication officer, Jin Park. His voice was shaking. "They're asking for help." Hana's heart stopped. Her husband June was down there. So were her children, Mira and Day. They were only 8 years old. June worked as an engineer helping to build new farms and cities on Haven Colony. It was supposed to be safe. It was supposed to be their new home. "How long until we reach them?" she asked. 4 hours at maximum speed," replied her pilot, Sung Lee. 4 hours. Hana closed her eyes. Her ship, the Defiant Dawn, was fast but small. It was built for patrol work, not fighting. These alien ships looked like they could destroy a planet. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them we need help. Tell them Haven Colony is under attack." The reply came back quickly. "All available ships are 3 days away. You are ordered to observe and report. Do not engage." Hana wanted to scream. Observe and report? Her family was down there. 50,000 people lived on Haven Colony. They had no weapons, no way to fight back. On the screen, the alien ships moved closer to the planet. They looked like giant metal insects with too many legs. Red lights glowed along their sides like angry eyes. "The aliens are sending a message," said Jin. "It's coming through on all frequencies." The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical. It spoke perfect English, which somehow made it worse. "This world now belongs to the Vorthak. Empire! All humans will surrender immediately. Resistance will be met with death." Hana gripped her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. "Get me a line to the colony. I need to talk to June." "I'm trying, Commander. The aliens are blocking most signals." Minutes passed like hours. Finally, Jin managed to connect her to the colony's emergency channel. "June? June? Can you hear me?" "Hana!" Her husband's voice crackled through the static. "Thank God. The ships appeared an hour ago. They're demanding we surrender. What should we do?" "Get to the emergency shelters. Take the children and get underground." "I'm coming." "The shelters won't help against those ships, will they?" Hana couldn't lie to him. "I don't know. Just stay safe. Keep the children close." "I love you," June said. "I love you too. All of you." The connection went dead. Hana watched helplessly as the alien ships positioned themselves around Haven Colony. They formed a perfect circle, like hunters surrounding their prey. Each ship was the size of a city. "Commander," said Sung, "we're still 3 hours away. 3 hours." Hana made a decision that would haunt her forever. "Change course. Full speed toward the colony." "Ma'am, our orders were to observe and report. I don't care about orders. Those are our people down there." The Defiant Dawn raced through space, but it felt like they were crawling. Hana tried calling the colony again and again. Sometimes she got through. Sometimes she heard screams. The Vorthak ships began firing. Red beams of light struck the planet's surface. Where they hit, everything died. Cities turned to glass. Forests burned to ash. The beautiful blue and green world that was Haven Colony began to turn black. "Commander!" Jin's voice was full of panic. "I'm getting emergency signals from all over the planet. The aliens aren't just destroying buildings, they're targeting the people directly." Hana felt sick. She watched her children's new home die from 3 hours away. She was supposed to protect these people. She was supposed to keep them safe. When they finally reached Haven Colony, it was too late. The planet looked like a burned coal in space. The oceans were boiling. The atmosphere was full of smoke and poison. Nothing could live down there now. "Any life signs?" Hana asked, even though she knew the answer. "No, Commander. I'm not reading any human life on the planet. 50,000 people. Gone, including her family." One of the Vorthak ships turned toward them. It was massive, easily 100 times bigger than the Defiant Dawn. Weapons pointed at them like giant fingers. A new voice came through their communications. This one sounded different, more alive, more cruel. You are too late, human. Your colony is dead. Your people are dead. Go home and tell your leaders that this is what happens to those who expand into Vorthak space. Hana wanted to fight. She wanted to ram her ship into theirs. She wanted to make them pay, but she had 12 crew members depending on her. Getting them killed wouldn't bring back June and the children. This is Commander Thulvex of the Imperial Fleet, the alien continued. Remember this name. Remember this day. Your species is weak. You have no place among the stars. The Vorthak ships began to leave. They didn't bother chasing the Defiant Dawn. Why would they? One small human ship meant nothing to them. Hana sat in her chair and stared at the dead planet below. Somewhere in that burned world were the remains of her husband and children. Somewhere down there was everything she had ever loved. Her communication officer tried to talk to her. Her pilot asked for orders. Her crew needed her to be strong. But Hana couldn't hear them anymore. All she could hear was the echo of Thulvex's voice saying her people were weak. They collected what data they could and started the long journey back to Earth. It would take weeks. Weeks of sitting with the knowledge that she had failed, that she had been too slow, too far away, too weak to save anyone. The official report would say that Haven Colony was destroyed by a superior alien force. It would say that resistance was impossible. It would say that Lieutenant Commander Hana Kim followed orders and observed the situation. But Hana knew the truth. She had watched her family die from 3 hours away. She had listened to their last words while flying through empty space. She had learned that there were things in the universe that wanted to hurt humans just because they could. And she had learned that being weak was the worst thing of all. The stars looked different now. They didn't look like places of wonder and hope. They looked like places where monsters lived, places where cruel voices told you that your children deserved to die. Hana Kim returned to Earth a different person than the one who had left. She came back carrying the weight of 50,000 deaths and the sound of her children's names echoing in her dreams. She came back carrying hate. 6 months had passed since Haven Colony died. Hana Kim sat on the floor of her brother's apartment in Neo Seoul, holding an empty bottle. The room was dark except for the glow from the city outside. She hadn't showered in 3 days. She hadn't eaten real food in longer than that. Tae Kim watched his sister from the doorway. He had been watching her destroy herself for months now. Every day she got a little worse. Every day she looked more like a ghost. Hana, he said quietly, you need help. She didn't look at him. She was staring at the wall where she had hung pictures of June and the children. Their faces smiled back at her, frozen in happier times. Before the Vorthak Empire. Before she learned what real loss felt like. The military doctors want to see you again, Tae continued. They say you missed your last 3 appointments. The military doesn't want me anymore, Hana said. Her voice was rough from not talking. They think I'm broken. They're right. You're not broken, you're hurt. There's a difference. Hana finally looked at her brother. His face was full of worry and sadness. She hated that she was doing this to him too. But she couldn't stop. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Haven Colony burning. Every time she tried to sleep, she heard Thulvex laughing. They gave me a medal, she said. Did I tell you that? They gave me a medal for watching my family die. Hana, Distinguished Service Medal, for following orders while 50,000 people burned to death. A knock came at the door. Tae looked confused. He wasn't expecting anyone. Hana didn't care who it was. She turned back to her pictures. Tae opened the door. A man in a military uniform stood outside. Admiral Young-soo, Lee. He was tall and serious, with gray hair and tired eyes. Hana had seen him on the news many times. He was one of the most important people in Earth's defense force. "Admiral," Tay said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I need to speak with your sister." Hana heard voices but didn't move. She knew who it was. She knew why he was here. They wanted to give her a desk job. Something safe where she couldn't cause problems, where she couldn't remind people that the Earth Defense Force had failed. Admiral Lee walked into the room. He looked around at the mess, at the empty bottles, at Hana sitting on the floor. His expression didn't change. "Commander Kim," he said. "I'm not a commander anymore," Hana replied without looking at him. "I'm nothing anymore." "The Defense Force needs you." Hana laughed, but there was no joy in it. "The Defense Force told me to watch. I watched. I watched my husband and children die while following orders. What more do you need? We need you to come back. There's a position available in strategic planning. Important work. A desk job." "Important work," the Admiral repeated. Hana stood up slowly. She was smaller than the Admiral, but when she looked at him, he took a step back. Her eyes were full of something dangerous. "Get out," she said. "Commander, get out!" Hana threw the empty bottle at the wall. It shattered, just like everything else in her life. The Admiral looked at her for a long moment, then left without another word. Tay closed the door behind him. "Hana, maybe you should think about—" "I said get out. That means you too." Her brother's face fell, but he left her alone. Hana went back to sitting on the floor, staring at her family's pictures. She had been alone for 6 months. She would be alone forever. An hour later, another knock came at the door. This time, Hana ignored it. The knocking continued. Finally, she got up and opened the door, ready to scream at whoever was bothering her. Yoon Park stood in the hallway. She was Jun's sister, and she looked just like him around the eyes. Seeing her was like being stabbed in the heart. "Hello, Hana," Yoon said softly. Hana wanted to close the door. She wanted to hide, but something in Yoon's voice stopped her. "What do you want?" "I need to show you something about what happened to our families. They're dead. There's nothing more to know." "That's not true." Yoon held up a data pad. "I work for the government, Department of Alien Affairs. I've been investigating what happened at Haven Colony. The Vorthok destroyed it. End of story." "No, Hana, that's not the end. May I come in?" Against her better judgment, Hana let her sister-in-law into the apartment. Yoon looked around at the mess, but didn't say anything about it. She sat down on the couch and activated her datapad. "This footage was classified until yesterday," Yoon said. "It came from a Defense Force probe that reached Haven Colony 2 weeks after the attack. Images appeared on the datapad's screen. Hana didn't want to look, but she couldn't help herself. It showed Haven Colony's remains, the burned cities, the poisoned oceans. "I've seen this already," Hana said. "Keep watching. The images changed. Now they showed Vorthak ships that had returned to the dead planet. Large shuttles were landing near the ruins of the cities. Vorthak soldiers were walking through the destroyed buildings." "What are they doing?" Hana asked. "Looking for survivors." "There were no survivors. You said so yourself. I saw the planet burn." "The emergency shelters were built to withstand almost anything. Some of them survived the initial attack. The people inside were badly hurt, but they were alive." Hana's heart started beating faster. "What happened to them?" The footage showed Vorthak soldiers dragging humans out of the ruined shelters. The people were burned and broken, but they were moving. They were alive. Hana saw children among them. She saw adults who might have been teachers or doctors or engineers. "The Vorthak have slave markets," Yoon continued. "They take prisoners from conquered worlds and sell them to other alien species. The survivors from Haven Colony were taken to processing facilities." "Processing facilities?" "Where they break people. where they turn them into slaves who will never think of fighting back. Hana felt something she hadn't felt in 6 months. Something that wasn't sadness or pain. It was anger. Pure, burning anger. "How many?" she asked. "We estimate about 3,000 people survived the initial attack. They were taken to a facility on a planet called Xerion Prime. Are they still alive?" "We don't know. The facility is deep in Vorthak space. No human ship has ever been there." Hana stared at the images. Somewhere among those prisoners might be people she knew, people from her children's school, friends of her husband. Maybe even, could June have survived? She whispered. "I don't know," Yoon said honestly. "But some people did, and they're still out there, waiting for someone to help them." Hana closed her eyes. For 6 months, she had believed her family was dead. She had accepted it. She had given up. But now there was a chance, however small, that June was still alive, that some of the children from Mira and Day's school were still alive. "What do you want me to do about it?" she asked. "I want you to stop giving up. I want you to remember that you're a soldier. I want you to find a way to help them." "The defense force won't authorize a rescue mission. They told me Haven Colony was a loss we had to accept. Maybe the defense force isn't the only option." Yoon pulled up another file on her datapad. This one showed information about a classified military project. "Have you ever heard of Project Prometheus?" Hana shook her head. "It's a black operations program. They develop new ways to fight enemies who are stronger than we are. Unconventional methods. The kind of things the regular military won't talk about." "What kind of things?" "The kind of things that might work against the Vorthak Empire." Hana looked at the screen. Project Prometheus was run by someone named Dr. Kyung-ho Yoon. The project was so classified that most of the information was blocked out. "How do I contact them?" she asked. "You don't. They contact you. But first, you have to do something to get their attention." "Like what?" Yoon smiled for the first time since she had arrived. "Like breaking into a restricted military archive and stealing their files." That night, after Yoon had gone home, Hana stood in front of the mirror in her bathroom. She looked terrible. Her hair was dirty and tangled. Her clothes were stained. Her eyes were red from months of crying and drinking, but for the first time in 6 months she had something to do, something that mattered. She cleaned herself up. She put on her old military uniform. It didn't fit quite right anymore because she had lost so much weight, but it would do. Then she left the apartment and headed for the military archive building, in the center of Neo Seoul. She was going to break some rules. She was going to steal some files. She was going to get herself in serious trouble. And maybe, just maybe, she was going to find a way to save the people the Vorthak Empire had taken from her world. Breaking into the military archive was easier than Hana had expected. Her old access codes still worked for some sections. The night security was light. Most importantly, no one expected a broken ex-commander to try something so bold. She found the Project Prometheus files hidden deep in the classified database. What she read there changed everything she thought she knew about warfare. Dr. Kyung-ho Yoon wasn't developing new weapons. He was studying old ones, human weapons, the kind of weapons that had made humans the deadliest species on Earth long before they reached the stars. The files were full of disturbing research, studies on psychological warfare from Earth's ancient wars, analysis of biological weapons that had been banned for centuries, detailed reports on interrogation techniques that broke people's minds instead of their bodies. Hana read through it all. She learned about fear as a weapon, about how to make enemies so terrified that they would rather die than fight, about viruses that could be modified to target specific alien biology, about ways to turn an enemy's own thoughts against them. It was everything the regular military would never approve. Everything that went against the rules of civilized warfare. Everything that might actually work against the Vorthak Empire. She was still reading when the lights came on. "You're very good at breaking and entering," said a voice behind her. "But not quite good enough." Hana spun around. A thin man in a lab coat stood in the doorway. He had gray hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. She recognized him from the files she had been reading. "Dr. Yoon," she said. "Commander Kim. Or should I say former Commander Kim. I've been expecting you." "You've been expecting me?" "Yoon Park told me about your conversation. She works for me, not the Department of Alien Affairs. I asked her to show you those files." Hana felt angry and confused. "You've been watching me?" "I've been waiting for you to decide whether you wanted to stay broken or become something useful." Dr. Yoon walked into the room and looked at the files she had been reading. "What do you think of my research?" "I think it's horrifying." "Good. That means you understand what it really is." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to volunteer for a field test. Project Prometheus has been theoretical until now. We need to see if our methods actually work against alien enemies." Hana looked at the files scattered across the desk. They contained ideas that would have been called war crimes if used against humans. Ideas that no civilized military would consider. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you have nothing left to lose. Because you hate the Vorthak Empire enough to do whatever it takes. And because you've already proven you can make hard choices." "What kind of hard choices?" Dr. Yoon pulled up a file on the computer. It showed her service record from the past. Few years. Every mission she had completed. Every decision she had made. 3 years ago, you sacrificed a supply convoy to save a colony ship. 2 years ago, you ordered an orbital bombardment on a Vorthak position even though human prisoners were being held there. Last year, you abandoned a rescue mission when you realized it was a trap. I followed military protocol in all those cases. Yes, but you also made the hard choice each time. You chose the option that saved more lives, even when it meant letting some people die. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. Hana stared at her own records. She remembered each of those decisions. They had kept her awake for months afterward. But Dr. Yoon was right. She had chosen to let some people die so that more people could live. What exactly would I be testing? Methods for fighting enemies who are stronger than we are. The Vorthak Empire has better ships, better weapons, and more soldiers. But they don't understand human psychology. They don't know what we're capable of when we stop playing by their rules. You're talking about becoming monsters. I'm talking about becoming what we need to become to win. Dr. Yoon showed her another file. This one contained profiles of other soldiers who had volunteered for the project. Captain Bo-Ra Choi, who had lost her entire unit on a planet called Kepler 442b. Sergeant Min-Ho Jung, whose parents had died when the Vorthak destroyed their ship near Proxima. Corporal Soo-Jin An, whose wife had been taken during a Vorthak raid. Lieutenant Jae-Won Ko, whose children had been killed when the Vorthak tested biological weapons on a human colony. All of them had lost everything to the Empire. All of them had volunteered to become something darker in order to fight back. We call ourselves the Shadow Unit, Dr. Yoon explained. We operate outside normal military command. We use methods that regular soldiers can't. We do things that would get other people court-martialed. Like what? Like introducing the Vorthak Empire to human cruelty. Like showing them what happens when a species that evolved from predators decides to stop being civilized. Hana thought about June and the children. She thought about the 3,000 survivors who might still be alive in Vorthak slave camps. She thought about Thulvex's voice telling her that humans were weak. "When do we start?" she asked. Dr. Yoon smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Immediately. Your first mission will be to infiltrate a Vorthak supply depot on Titan. But this won't be a normal military operation. We're going to teach them something new." "What are we going to teach them?" "Fear." The next morning, Hana met her new team at a secret facility beneath the mountains outside Neo-Seoul. The place looked like a normal military base on the surface, but the lower levels were different, darker, full of equipment and research that regular soldiers never saw. Captain Bo-Ra Choi was exactly what Hana had expected. She was tall and strong with scars on her hands and a cold look in her eyes. She had been special forces before the Vorthak killed her unit. Now she was something else entirely. "You're the one who watched Haven Colony burn," Bo-Ra said when they met. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Good. That means you know what we're fighting against." Sergeant Min-ho Jung was smaller than the others, but he had steady hands and a quiet voice. He specialized in explosives, but not the kind used in normal warfare. His bombs were designed to cause maximum psychological damage, not just physical destruction. Corporal Sujin An worked with communications and computer systems. She was young, maybe 25, but she could hack into any system the Vorthak used. More importantly, she could make their own communications turn against them. Lieutenant Jaewon Ko was a sniper, but his real skill was patience. He could wait, for days or weeks, for the perfect shot. He could make enemies paranoid just by letting them know he was watching. "Your training starts now," Dr. Yoon told them. "You have 2 weeks to learn methods that most soldiers never hear about. Methods that human armies used centuries ago, before we decided to be civilized." The training was unlike anything Hana had experienced in her military career. They didn't learn about honor or rules of engagement. They learned about fear and pain and how to use them as weapons. They studied the psychology of different alien species. They learned how Vorthak minds worked, what they were afraid of, what would break their morale. They practiced with biological weapons that had been banned from human warfare for 300 years. Modified viruses that could target alien DNA. Chemicals that caused hallucinations and paranoia. They learned interrogation techniques that were designed to destroy minds rather than just extract information. Ways to make prisoners beg for death rather than answer questions. Most importantly, they learned to think differently. They learned to see enemies not as soldiers to be defeated, but as psychological targets to be broken. "The Vorthak Empire believes that humans are weak because we show mercy," Dr. Yoon explained during one training session. "They think our rules and ethics make us inferior. They're about to learn that those rules were never about weakness. They were about controlling what we could become." "What are we becoming?" Hana asked. "Apex predators, the thing that scared every other species on Earth into extinction or submission. Humans without the rules that made us safe to be around." On the last day of training, Dr. Yoon showed them their target. The Vorthak supply depot on Titan was heavily defended, with over 1,000 alien soldiers. It supplied weapons and equipment to Vorthak fleets throughout the outer solar system. "A normal military strike would require a fleet and thousands of casualties," he said. "You're going to take it with 5 people and some very old human knowledge." "How?" Bo-Ra asked. "By reminding the galaxy why humans became the dominant species on their home planet. By showing the Vorthak what humans are capable of when they stop being civilized." Hana looked at her teammates. They were all damaged people. All of them had been broken by the Vorthak Empire. But now they were being rebuilt into something new. Something dangerous. "What happens after we take the depot?" she asked. "Then we move on to bigger targets. And we keep moving until every Vorthak in the galaxy knows that attacking humans was the worst mistake their species ever made." That night, Hana called her brother to say goodbye. She couldn't tell him where she was going or what she was planning to do. She could only tell him that she had found a way to fight back. "Be careful," Tay said. "I'm going to save them," Hana replied. "The survivors from Haven Colony, I'm going to bring them home." "What if you can't?" "Then I'm going to make sure the Vorthak regret ever hearing the word human." She hung up and prepared for the mission that would change everything. In 12 hours, the Vorthak supply depot on Titan looked like a giant metal spider sitting on the frozen moon's surface. Its 8 legs stretched out for kilometers, each one containing weapons, equipment, and sleeping quarters for alien soldiers. In the center sat the main command structure, where over 1,000 Vorthak worked to supply their fleets. Hana and her team watched from a hidden position 3 kilometers away. Their ship, a modified stealth vessel called the Silent Death, was buried under artificial ice. To Vorthak sensors, it looked like just another frozen hill. "Remember," whispered Captain Bo-Ra Choi through their communications, "this isn't about destroying the depot. Any fool with enough explosives could do that. This is about teaching them fear." Sergeant Minho Jung checked his equipment one more time. Instead of normal military explosives, he carried containers filled with modified Earth pathogens, viruses that Dr. Yoon's team had designed specifically for Vorthak biology. "The virus will spread through their ventilation system," he explained, quietly. "It doesn't kill immediately. First, it causes hallucinations. They'll start seeing things that aren't there, hearing voices, attacking their own soldiers." Corporal Sujin An was already working on the depot's communication systems. She had been hacking into them for hours, replacing normal audio with something much worse. "I've uploaded the psychological warfare files," she reported. "Every time they try to communicate, they'll hear recordings of Vorthak soldiers screaming mixed with human children singing lullabies. The contrast should drive them insane." Lieutenant Jae-won Ko lay motionless beside his sniper rifle. He wasn't planning to kill many targets. His job was to make the survivors paranoid, to let them know they were being watched by something they couldn't see or understand. "Phase 1 begins now," Hana said. Sujin activated her program. Throughout the depot, Vorthak communication systems suddenly filled with horrifying sounds. The screams of dying soldiers mixed with the innocent voices of human children singing old Earth songs. The beautiful melodies made the screams even more disturbing. Confusion spread through the depot immediately. Vorthak soldiers tried to turn off their communication devices, but the sounds followed them. The virus Sujin had planted in their computer systems made sure the recordings played from every speaker, every device, every piece of equipment that could make noise. "They're panicking," Jae-won reported from his position. "I can see soldiers running around trying to find the source of the sounds." "Good," said Bo-Ra. "Now they know something is wrong, but they don't know what. Fear of the unknown is always worse than fear of a visible enemy." Minho moved closer to the depot's air intake systems. The Vorthak had built their base like a fortress, but they had never fought humans before. They didn't understand that humans had learned to turn any enclosed space into a trap. He attached his biological weapons to the ventilation systems and activated them. The modified viruses began spreading through the depot's air supply immediately. Within hours, every Vorthak inside would be breathing them. "Package delivered," he reported. "The fun should start in about 3 hours." While they waited for the biological weapons to take effect, Hana's team began the next phase of their attack. This wasn't about killing enemies quickly. This was about breaking their minds slowly. Jae-won began taking careful shots at Vorthak soldiers who were standing guard outside the depot. But he didn't kill them. Instead, he wounded them in ways that would cause maximum psychological damage. Shot through the shoulder that left a soldier screaming for help. A shot that destroyed a weapon but left the alien holding it unharmed. A shot that killed the soldier standing next to a target but left the target completely untouched. "The survivors will know someone is hunting them," he explained as he worked. "But they won't know who or where or why some die while others live. They'll start to think the universe itself is against them." Inside the depot, the first signs of the biological weapon began to appear. Vorthak soldiers started seeing things that weren't there. Shadows that moved when nothing was casting them. Dead comrades standing in doorways. Human children laughing in empty rooms. "Look at them," Bo-Ra said, watching through her scope. "They're starting to turn their weapons on each other. They can't tell the difference between hallucinations and reality." The communication system continued to broadcast its mixture of screams and lullabies, but now Sujin added something new. She had recorded the voices of dying Vorthak soldiers from previous battles and mixed them with the sounds of human babies. crying. "Psychological warfare rule number 1, she said as she worked. Take something the enemy expects to be comforting and turn it into a weapon. Now every time they hear their own language, they'll also hear human infants in distress. It will drive them insane." 3 hours after the biological attack began, the depot erupted into chaos. Vorthak soldiers were attacking each other, convinced that their comrades were actually human infiltrators in disguise. Others were shooting at empty air, trying to kill hallucinations that only they could see. Commander Vextar, the Vorthak officer, in charge of the depot, tried to restore order. He was a veteran of many battles, and he had never seen anything like this before. "All units, report your status," he broadcast through the depot's communication system. Instead of receiving normal reports, he heard the voice of a human child singing an old Earth lullaby about stars and dreams. Then the voice changed to that of a Vorthak soldier begging for mercy before dying horribly. "Sir," one of his officers reported, "we've lost contact with Sections 7, 12, and 15. The soldiers there are reporting attacks by invisible enemies." "Invisible enemies? They say humans are appearing from nowhere, sir. Humans who can walk through walls and disappear at will. Some of our people think the humans have learned how to become ghosts." Vextar felt something he had never experienced before. Genuine fear. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to be easy prey. But this felt different. This felt like being hunted by something that understood fear better than the Vorthak understood war. Outside the depot, Hana's team prepared for the final phase of their attack. They had softened the enemy's psychology. Now it was time to show the survivors what humans could really do. "Remember," Hana said as they prepared to enter the depot, "we want some of them to escape. We want them to carry stories back to their fleets. Stories about what happens when humans stop being civilized." They entered through a ventilation shaft that Minho had prepared with additional biological surprises. The inside of the depot was dark and full of the sounds of Vorthak soldiers, fighting invisible enemies. "Section by section," Bora ordered. "Make sure every survivor sees something they'll never forget." They moved through the depot like professional killers, but killers with a purpose beyond death. Every Vorthak they encountered died in a way designed to terrify the others. Some were found arranged in patterns that had meaning to human psychology, but looked like alien rituals to Vorthak minds. Others were killed with weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate Vorthak armor, making it seem like the humans had supernatural powers. Most importantly, they left messages. Words written in Vorthak blood on the walls. Symbols that looked like human religious markings. Evidence that the humans weren't just soldiers, but something much worse. "Sir," a panicked Vorthak soldier reported to Commander Vextar, "we found Lieutenant Kulvar in Section 12. He's been arranged, like some kind of human ceremony, and there are words written in our language. They say this is only the beginning." Vextar felt his confidence cracking. He had fought many species before, but this was different. This felt personal, like the humans were trying to send him a specific message. "How many humans are attacking us?" he asked. "We don't." "No, sir. Survivors report seeing them everywhere, but also nowhere. Some say there are hundreds. Others say they've only seen 5. A few think they're fighting ghosts." That was exactly what Hana's team wanted. Confusion, fear, the sense that reality itself couldn't be trusted anymore. By the time they reached the command center, half the depot's soldiers were dead or insane. The other half were too terrified to fight effectively. They had been introduced to human warfare, and they didn't like what they learned. Commander Vextar stood in his command center, surrounded by the few officers who were still capable of rational thought. He was staring at a message that had appeared on every screen in the depot. It was written in perfect Vorthak, but the style was unlike anything their species would write. It read, "You killed our families. Now we introduce you to our true nature. This depot dies today. You die tomorrow. Tell your empire that humanity remembers everything." "Sir," one of his officers said, "we should evacuate immediately. Whatever these humans are doing, it's not natural warfare." "No," Vextar replied. "We're soldiers of the Empire. We don't run from humans." That was his last mistake. Hana appeared in the command center like a shadow made solid. She moved faster than Vorthak eyes could follow, killing guards with weapons. They didn't recognize. But she left Vextar alive. "You're the one who destroyed Haven Colony," she said in perfect Vorthak. "Commander Thulvex told us about you. How you watched while 50,000 humans died." "Humans are weak," Vextar said, but his voice was shaking. "You have no place among the stars." The stories spread through Vorthok's space like a plague. Every ship that docked, every communication that passed between fleets, every supply convoy that moved through the Empire carried the same terrifying news. Humans had changed. Emperor Korthul sat in his throne room on the capital world of Vorthak Prime, reading reports that made no sense. 12 military installations had been attacked by human forces in the past 2 months, but these weren't normal attacks. "Explain this to me again," he said to his military advisors. "How can 5 humans destroy a supply depot defended by 1,000 soldiers?" General Thekron, his most trusted commander, shifted uncomfortably. "Your Majesty, the humans appear to have developed new weapons, weapons that attack the mind instead of the body." "Impossible. Humans are weak. They show mercy to their enemies. They follow rules in warfare." "Not anymore, Your Majesty." The Emperor read through the reports again. At the Titan Depot, Vorthak soldiers had been found arranged in ritual patterns. Their own weapons had been turned against them. The survivors spoke of invisible attackers who appeared from nowhere and disappeared like ghosts. At the mining facility on Ceres, an entire battalion had gone insane after breathing air that contained unknown biological agents. They had killed each other while hallucinating that their comrades were human infiltrators. At the refueling station near Jupiter, Vorthak officers had been found alive, but broken. They spoke of being tortured not with pain, but with visions of their own deaths played over and over in their minds. "What do our psychologists say about this?" the Emperor asked. Dr. Veltar, the Empire's leading expert on alien psychology, stepped forward. She was shaking slightly, which was unusual for a Vorthak scientist. "Your Majesty, I've interviewed dozens of survivors from these attacks. What they describe goes against everything we know about human warfare. They speak of enemies who seem to enjoy causing fear more than causing death." "Elaborate." "In every case, some Vorthak soldiers were deliberately left alive. But these survivors were changed. They exhibit symptoms of severe psychological trauma. Many refuse to serve on ships that patrol human space. Some have requested transfer to non-combat duties. A few have requested early retirement from military service." Emperor Korthul felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: concern. The Vorthak Empire had conquered thousands of worlds. They had defeated species with superior technology and greater numbers, but they had never faced an enemy that attacked the mind. "How many ships have refused orders to patrol human space?" he asked. General Thekron consulted his datapad. 3 entire fleets, Your Majesty. The crews claim they are not cowards, but they refuse to face enemies who fight like demons from the void. This is unacceptable. We cannot allow humans to terrorize our military." "Your Majesty," Dr. Veltar interrupted, "I believe the humans are doing this deliberately. They want our soldiers to be afraid. They want word to spread throughout the Empire." "Why would they want that?" "Because fear is more powerful than weapons. A terrified enemy makes mistakes. A terrified enemy sees threats where none exist. A terrified enemy defeats itself." The Emperor stood up from his throne. He was twice as tall as a human and covered in natural armor that had evolved over millions of years. His species had ruled half the galaxy through superior strength and ruthless efficiency, but now 5 humans with primitive ships were making his soldiers afraid to fight. "Show me the latest reports," he ordered. The new information was even more disturbing. Human attacks were becoming more sophisticated, more psychological, more designed to break minds rather than destroy equipment. At a weapons facility on Europa, human attackers had used modified viruses that caused Vorthak soldiers to see their worst fears made real. Some had seen their homeworlds burning. Others had seen their families being tortured. All of them had been driven insane by visions that felt completely real. At a communication station near Saturn, humans had hacked into the Empire's data networks and filled them with images of dead Vorthak, soldiers arranged in ritualistic patterns. Every screen in the station had displayed the same message: "We are coming for all of you." Most disturbing of all was the report from the prison ship Soul Render. Captain Bo Ra Choi had led an attack that freed human prisoners, but she had done something much worse to their captors. She had injected the Vorthak crew with biological agents that caused them to hallucinate that they were being eaten alive by invisible creatures. The hallucinations lasted for days. Some of the affected soldiers had tried to cut the imaginary creatures out of their own bodies. The survivors who escaped carried the infection back to other ships. Now the hallucinations were spreading through the fleet like a contagious disease. "This woman, Bora Choi," the Emperor said. "What do we know about her?" "She was a Special Forces soldier before her unit was killed on Kepler 442b. Now she leads something called the Shadow Unit. They specialize in what humans call unconventional warfare, meaning they don't follow the normal rules of combat. They use fear, biological weapons, psychological torture, and tactics that most civilized species would consider war crimes." Emperor Korthel felt a chill run through his body. War crimes. The concept was almost unknown in Vorthak culture. They conquered through strength and destroyed those who resisted, but they had never thought of warfare as something that could target the mind itself. What about the leader of these attacks? The one called Hana Kim? Dr. Veltar pulled up another file. She was present at the destruction of Haven Colony. She watched her family die from space while following orders not to intervene. Our analysts believe this experience broke something fundamental in her psychology. Broke how? She no longer thinks like a normal human. She thinks like a predator. Her attacks are not random violence. They are carefully planned campaigns designed to cause maximum psychological damage to our entire military structure. The Emperor studied the image of Hana Kim on the screen. She looked small and fragile compared to a Vorthak warrior, but her eyes held something that made him uncomfortable. They held the patience of a creature that knew how to hunt. "Sir," General Thekron said, "there's something else. We've intercepted intelligence suggesting that these attacks are just field tests." Field tests for what? For methods that Earth's military plans to use against our entire empire. They're studying how we react to these psychological weapons. They're learning how to break our morale on a large scale. Emperor Korthel sat back down on his throne. For the first time in his long reign, he felt genuinely threatened, not by superior weapons or greater numbers, but by an enemy that understood. Something about warfare that the Vorthak had never considered. "What do our strategic analysts recommend?" he asked. "They suggest we avoid direct confrontation with human forces until we can develop countermeasures for their psychological weapons." Avoid confrontation? We are the Vorthak Empire. We do not avoid confrontation with anyone. Your Majesty, Dr. Veltar said quietly. I believe the humans are trying to provoke exactly that response. They want us to send large forces against them. They want to test their methods on a bigger scale. Before the Emperor could respond, an aide rushed into the throne room. He was clearly panicked, which was unusual for a Vorthak court official. Your Majesty, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Zerion Prime facility. Zerion Prime. The Emperor knew that name. It was where they processed prisoners from conquered worlds, where they broke the spirits of defeated enemies and turned them into useful slaves. What kind of emergency? The facility is under attack. Sir, but the attackers? They're not trying to destroy it. They're trying to get inside. Emperor Korthel felt his blood turn cold. Xerion Prime held thousands of prisoners from dozens of conquered worlds, including the survivors from Haven. Colony, how many human ships are attacking? One, Your Majesty. A single modified stealth vessel. How many humans? Our sensors detect 5 life signs. 5 humans against a facility defended by 10,000 Vorthak soldiers. It should have been impossible. But after reading months of reports about human psychological warfare, the Emperor was beginning to understand that impossible didn't mean the same thing anymore. Sir, the aide continued, the facility commander is requesting immediate reinforcement. He says the humans are using weapons that his soldiers have never seen before. What kind of weapons? Biological agents that cause madness. Communication. Viruses that turn our own systems against us. And, sir, they're broadcasting something on all frequencies. What are they broadcasting? The aide activated the communication system. The throne room filled with the sound of a woman's voice speaking. Perfect Vorthak. But there was something wrong with the tone. Something that made every Vorthak in the room feel afraid. This is Commander Hana Kim of the Human Shadow Unit. We have come to collect what you stole from us. Every human you have taken from Haven Colony will be returned. Every Vorthak who harmed them will be punished. This is not a negotiation. This is an introduction. The transmission ended. The throne room was silent except for the sound of Vorthak officials breathing heavily. An introduction to what? The Emperor asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Dr. Veltar looked at the data streaming in from Xerion Prime. Vorthak soldiers were already reporting hallucinations. Xerion Prime looked like a fortress from the outside, but Hana Kim knew it was really a prison. Somewhere inside that massive complex were the survivors from Haven Colony. Somewhere inside was possibly her husband, June, alive but broken by months of Vorthak torture. She stood in the command center of the Silent Death, watching her team prepare for their most important mission. This wasn't about destroying a military target or testing psychological weapons. This was about saving the people they had failed to protect 6 months ago. Remember, Captain Bora Choi said as she checked her equipment, we're not just here to rescue prisoners. We're here to send a message to every Vorthak in the galaxy. What kind of message? Asked Sergeant Min-Ho Jung. That humans protect their own, and that anyone who hurts our people will face something worse than death. Lieutenant Jae-Won Ko was studying the facility's layout through his scope. I count over 10,000 Vorthak soldiers, plus automated defenses, plus orbital weapons, platforms. Numbers don't matter, said Corporal Soo-Jin An as she worked on her computer systems. We're not going to fight them directly. We're going to turn their own strengths against them. Hana activated the communication system and broadcast her message to the facility. She wanted every Vorthak inside to know exactly why they were about to die. This is Commander Hana Kim of the Human Shadow Unit. We have come to collect what you stole from us. Every human you have taken from Haven Colony will be returned. Every Vorthak who harmed them will be punished. This is not a negotiation. This is an introduction. She cut the transmission and turned to her team. Let's show them what Earth's true weapons look like. The attack began not with explosions or energy weapons, but with something much more subtle. Soo-Jin had spent weeks studying Xerion Prime's computer systems, learning how they worked, finding their weaknesses. Her virus entered their network like water flowing through cracks. Within minutes, every screen in the facility was displaying images of dead Vorthak soldiers arranged in ritualistic patterns. Every communication device was broadcasting the sound of humans singing children's songs mixed with the screams of dying aliens. Phase 1 complete, Soo-Jin reported. Their computer, Systems are now working for us instead of them. Minho had prepared something special for Zerion Prime. Instead of normal biological weapons, he had created what Dr. Yoon called ecosystem bombs, containers filled with modified Earth organisms designed to turn an entire planet's environment against its inhabitants. He released them into Zerion Prime's atmosphere. The organisms spread quickly, invisible to Vorthak sensors but deadly to Vorthak biology. They entered the facility's air supply and began changing the atmosphere itself. What will it do to them? Hana asked. First, it will make them paranoid. They'll start seeing threats everywhere. Then it will affect their nervous systems. They'll begin attacking anything that moves, including each other. Finally, it will cause complete psychological breakdown. How long? 6 hours for full effect. But they'll start experiencing symptoms within minutes. Jae-won took his position on a ridge overlooking the facility. His job wasn't to kill large numbers of enemies. His job was to create the impression that the humans were everywhere, watching everything, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He fired a single shot that killed a guard on the facility's outer wall. Then he moved to a different position and fired again and again. Each shot came from a different location, making it seem like the facility was surrounded by an army of invisible snipers. Psychological warfare rule, he explained over the communication system. Make the enemy think you're stronger than you really are. 5 humans become 50 in their minds. 50 become 500. Inside the facility, panic was beginning to spread. Vorthak soldiers were reporting attacks from multiple directions, but their sensors couldn't detect any human ships or weapons. The modified atmosphere was starting to affect their judgment, making them see threats that didn't exist. Commander Zul Thak, the Vorthak officer in charge of Zerion Prime, tried to coordinate a defense, but his communication systems kept broadcasting, terrifying sounds instead of tactical information. His computer showed images of dead soldiers instead of useful data. "Sir," one of his officers reported, "we're under attack from an unknown number of human forces. They appear to be using weapons we've never encountered before." "What kind of weapons?" "Invisible weapons, sir. Our soldiers are dying, but we can't see what's killing them. Some are reporting that the air itself is becoming poisonous." Zulthak felt the first effects of Minho's biological weapon entering his system. The world began to look strange. Shadows seemed to move when nothing was casting them. Sounds seemed to come from empty air. "How many humans are attacking us?" he asked. We don't know, sir. Estimates range from 5 to 5,000. That was exactly what Hana's team wanted. Confusion, fear. The sense that reality itself couldn't be trusted. Bora led the next phase of the attack. She entered the facility not through the main entrance, but through the waste disposal systems. Humans had learned centuries ago that enemies never expected attacks from their own sewers. She moved through the facility like a ghost, killing guards with weapons they couldn't see coming. But more importantly, she left evidence of her presence designed to terrorize the survivors, bodies arranged in patterns that meant nothing to Vorthak minds, but looked like human religious ceremonies. Messages written in alien blood that said things like, "We are coming for all of you," and "This is what happens to those who hurt our children." "Section 12 is secure," she reported, moving toward the prisoner-holding areas. Sujin had hacked into the facility's prisoner database and found what they were looking for. The survivors from Haven Colony were being held in the deepest part of the complex, where the Vorthak conducted their most brutal experiments on captive minds. "I've found them," she announced. "Sub-level 15. There are still over 2,000 humans alive down there." Hana felt her heart jump. 2,000 survivors, more than they had hoped for. Maybe, just maybe, June was among them. "What's their condition?" she asked. "Unknown, but the Vorthak records indicate they've been subjected to intensive psychological conditioning. They're trying to break human spirits so they can be sold as slaves. Then we're going to break some Vorthak spirits in return." The team converged on sub-level 15. By now, the biological weapons had been working on the facility's defenders for over an hour. Vorthak soldiers were beginning to attack each other, convinced that their comrades were actually human infiltrators in disguise. The corridors were filled with the sounds of aliens fighting invisible enemies. Some were shooting at empty air. Others were hiding in storage rooms, too terrified to come out. A few were repeating the same phrases over and over, their minds broken by hours of psychological warfare. This is what happens when predators decide to hunt, Hana said as they moved through the chaos. We don't just kill our prey. We make sure they know they're being hunted. They reached the prisoner holding areas and found something that made Hana's blood boil. Hundreds of humans in small cells, many of them clearly from Haven Colony. They were thin and pale, but they were alive. And in the center of the complex, in a cell designed for the most important prisoners, she found him. June Park sat on the floor of his cell, staring at nothing. He was thinner than she remembered, and there were scars on his hands that hadn't been there before. But he was alive. "June," she whispered through the cell door. He looked up slowly. His eyes took a moment to focus on her face. When they did, she saw recognition, followed by something. "That might have been Hope. Hana? Is that really you? It's me. I'm here to take you home. I knew you would come. I told them you would come. The Vorthak said humans abandoned their own, but I knew better." Hana used Minho's explosives to blow open the cell doors. As she helped June to his feet, she saw other familiar faces among the prisoners. Teachers from her children's school. Engineers who had worked with June. Families she had known when Haven Colony was still whole. "Where are Mira and Day?" June asked quietly. Hana's heart broke all over again. "They didn't make it to the shelters in time." "I'm sorry." June nodded, slowly. He had known. He had hoped, but he had known. "Then we make sure no other children suffer like they did," he said. As her team evacuated the prisoners, Hana prepared for the final part of their mission. Somewhere in this facility was Commander Thulvex, the Vorthak officer who had destroyed Haven Colony, the one who had laughed while 50,000 humans died. She found him in his private quarters, hiding under a desk like a frightened animal. The biological weapons had been working on his system for hours. He was seeing things that weren't there, hearing voices that spoke only in his mind. "Commander Thulvex," she said in perfect Vorthak. He looked up at her with eyes full of madness and terror. "You're not real. You're another hallucination." "I'm very real. I'm the human you said was weak, the one who watched her children die while you laughed. Humans are weak," he whispered, but his voice was shaking. "You have no place among the stars." "You're right," Hana replied. "We don't belong among the stars. We belong in the dark places where nightmares live. We belong in the minds of creatures who hurt our families.